ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਏਸ਼ੀਆ ਟੀਵੀ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਹੀ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਇਸ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਹਾਂ ਜੁਗਰਾਜਦੀਪ ਸਿੰਘ। ਅੱਜ ਦਾ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਕੋ-ਹੋਸਟ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਨੇ ਸੰਜੀਵ ਤਵਨ ਜੀ। ਸੰਜੀਵ ਜੀ, ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ ਜੀ।
ਜੁਗਰਾਜ, ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਵੈਰੀ ਮਚ।
ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਦਾ ਮੈਦਾਨ ਪੂਰੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਭਖ ਚੁੱਕਿਆ ਹੈ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਤੇ ਤਾਨੇ ਕੱਸ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਹਨ। ਉਸੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਵੱਖ-ਵੱਖ ਪਾਰਟੀਆਂ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਨਵੇਂ-ਨਵੇਂ ਵਾਅਦਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਝੜੀ ਵੀ ਲਾਈ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਇਸ ਡਿਬੇਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਏ ਹਾਂ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਈਸਟ ਦੇ। ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਪਰਿਚੈ ਕਰਾ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਫਿਰ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਡਿਬੇਟ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਮੇਰੇ ਖੱਬੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਨੇ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਮਨਿੰਦਰ ਸਿੱਧੂ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਪੇਸ਼ੇ ਵਜੋਂ ਇੱਕ ਐਂਟਰਪ੍ਰੈਨਿਓਰ ਨੇ, ਇੱਕ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਨਾਲ ਆਪਣਾ ਤਾਲੁਕਾਤ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਨੇ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਐਨਡੀਪੀ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਸ਼ਰਨਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਪੇਸ਼ੇ ਵਜੋਂ ਲਾਇਰ ਨੇ ਅਤੇ ਐਨਡੀਪੀ ਨਾਲ ਕਾਫੀ ਲੰਬੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੋਂ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ। ਮੇਰੇ ਸੱਜੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਨੇ ਪੀਪਲਜ਼ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਆਫ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰ ਗੌਰਵ ਵਾਲੀਆ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਆਈਟੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਨੇ ਅਤੇ ਯੂਟਿਊਬਰ ਵੀ ਨੇ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਰਮੋਨਾ ਸਿੰਘ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਟੈਲੀਕਮਿਊਨੀਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਸੈਕਟਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੱਡੇ ਅਹੁਦਿਆਂ ਤੇ ਰਹਿ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਨੇ। ਉਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਰੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਨਿਭਾ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਨੇ। ਆਓ ਹੁਣ ਡਿਬੇਟ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਡਿਬੇਟਸ ਦੇ ਰੂਲ ਸੰਜੀਵ ਜੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਰੂਬਰੂ ਕਰਵਾ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ।
ਸੋ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਏਸ਼ੀਆ ਟੀਵੀ is hosting today a candidate debate of Brampton East. This 1-hour debate will center on major issues including immigration, religious symbols, affordable housing, economy, climate, healthcare, foreign relations, and Brampton issues. The rules of the debate are: debate will be in English language. There will be 5 segments of 11 minutes. After each segment, there will be a break. Each candidate will get 1.5 minutes. And rebuttals will be allotted 45 seconds. Rebuttals will be permitted if a candidate or her party is challenged by the other candidates. If a host asks a follow-up question, candidate will get 45 seconds. A reminder bell will ring when a candidate has 5 seconds of speaking time remaining. The host reserves the right to interrupt candidates who surpass their allotted time. Candidates will focus on precise questions asked by the host. If a candidate stray off topic, the host will have the right to cut them off. In the last segment, each candidate can ask one question to a single candidate of his or her choice. If a candidate chooses not to ask question to the other candidates, the host will pose a question to any candidate of their choice if the time permit. Candidates will be respectful and cordial to one another, to the host, and they will also respect the time. No derogatory language will be allowed during the debate. Yuvraj.
Now the debate begins. I would like to start with Moninder Sidhu, the Liberal candidate. In the 2015 elections, Justin Trudeau pledged that he'll keep the deficits under 10 billion. And he also said that he's going to balance the books by the end of 4 years. He has broke his major election promise of 2015. Why should Canadians trust Justin Trudeau this time?
Well, we want to continue to invest in our middle class and families. Giving back to families. Middle class is the backbone of our economy. If we don't invest in them, we don't invest in Canada. If you notice, over the last 4 years, close to 1 million jobs were created. Why? Because our investments in Canadians.
But they've already broken the promise. So whatever promises they're doing right now, why should Canadians believe that you're going to fulfill them?
Because Canadians, when I'm knocking at doors, agree what we're doing is right. We're investing on our middle class. We are delivering on a CCB, Canada Child Benefits Plan, where we're taking almost $7,000 and giving it to families across Brampton East, and they are excited about that.
Maninder, is it true that probably at the last election, Justin Trudeau could not visualize this thing, that his plan is not going to work, so that he made a promise, as Jugraj has said, so he didn't visualize it, that it won't be possible?
Look, as a government, you've got to be able to pivot. You've got to be able to give people what they want. And we saw what people wanted, and the middle class needed the support, and we gave it to them.
I'd like to come to Conservative candidate Ms. Ramona Singh. How much satisfied are you with the answer of a Liberal candidate? And do you think it's important to balance the books, and will your party be able to do that?
Well, absolutely. I think that it's important to invest in Canadians, but it's also important to balance the books, because what happens is that the revenue that the government gets is from taxpayers. And when we go into a recession every 10 years, they adopted a government with $2 billion surplus. Right now they're at $705 billion in debt. So that's a $50,000 shared debt per household. Going into a recession, that's going to cripple our economy, it's going to cripple our government.
So what plan do you have?
Well, we have a plan to be able to make sure that we cut the wasteful spending. I mean, when they say they've spent $705 billion. We don't see infrastructure, we don't see spending when it comes to what Canadians need. We don't know where that money has gone, so they actually have no accountability.
How much time do you think that a conservative government will take to balance the books?
Well, that's unknown because when we get into power, we have to go by line item to see what the actual spending is.
Your leader said when he was fighting the campaign of the leadership, he said he will do in 2 years, and now he's talking about he'll balance the books in 5 years.
So in the leadership campaign, you don't have access to certain information. Once you become a leader, you have access to more information when you become the opposition leader under Her Majesty. So if the leader says in 5 years, then that's the answer.
Okay.
So probably when, if your party is elected to the government, then you'll have access to more stuff and that can change again?
Absolutely. You always do a line-by-line audit to see what has actually happened and what the promises are and if there's actual budget for it. We've seen that happen with the provincial government. That's the same thing that's going to happen with the federal government. Absolutely.
So I'd like to come to Mr. Singh. What's your party's plan on balancing the books, and how do you take the economy of the country forward?
So we have to invest in everyday Canadians. Very important things that we've seen from these two answers. One's from Liberals, broken promises. They said they broke our promises, now they're saying people believe in our broken promises. They're covering their tracks, and that's what we always see. Key word from my colleague right here was that cuts, conservative cuts. The NDP is focused on making an economy that works for everybody. We're focused on tax fairness. Multi-billion-dollar corporations make tons of profits, make a lot of money, and they make it because consecutive governments have cut their taxes while not invested in regular day people. That's why we're focused on investment in renewable technology, creating more than 300,000 new jobs with that investment, and also making sure that large-scale billion-dollar corporations are paying their fair share. So we're going to make sure that we have an economy that works for everyone.
Shanji, the question still stands. How much time your party will take if it comes to the power to balance the books? Do you have any timeline? Do your party has any timeline?
So in terms of timeline, we need to get in there and we need to see what the books are like. You know, we've seen that when the Conservatives left, they claimed that there was a surplus, that there wasn't. When the Liberals came in, they claimed that they wouldn't run a deficit, but they did. So once we get in there, we're able to see. And we have our tax measures. For example, the Parliamentary Budget Officer says one of our measures can bring in $70 billion over 10 years that we can invest. Once we get that in there, our entire budget is costed. So we'll be able to be fiscally responsible as we have been historically.
Mr. Sidhu, you want to say something?
I know my colleague Sarnjit said that the NDP wants to increase taxes on corporations. We've seen this playbook before with Rachel Notley in Alberta, with Bob Ray in Ontario. It hasn't worked. Job losses occurred when they used this playbook before. So it's the very same playbook that the NDP uses on increasing taxes on corporations, closing tax loopholes. It never works. But yet they come up with these ideas every few years.
Just 45 seconds.
It's 45. So you'll see right here, according to the Liberals, you can never raise taxes on corporations. The Liberals' solution to everything is to never make the richest pay, always focus on raising taxes on everybody else. And we see what happened in Alberta. In Alberta, Rachel Notley invested in folks. She made sure that individuals were getting programs. And one of the first things that happened when the Conservatives came in is they cut the minimum wage. They said people at the bottom making the minimum wage, you're making too much money. And that's the type of record that the Liberals want to see. That's what we've seen. They claim they've made 1 million jobs, but what are the quality of those jobs? We have precarious employment. We have individuals that can have to work 2 or 3 jobs.
Got your point. What's your party's plan on that?
On what item can you?
On where your party stands on taking the economy of the country, does your party think that balancing the books is important or not?
Well, every party does feel, and we're the only party which claims it's going to be done in 2 years. And as a Canadian, I've seen Liberal, I've seen Conservative, and on the provincial level, I've seen NDP. And personally, and even after talking to people, I've seen no success with these parties.
Gaurav, we will give you more time on this. Now we are going for a commercial break and we'll come back.
Welcome to Prime Elections After Debate. Gaurav, I would like to kind of start with you. You just said that your party says that you're going to balance the budget, balance the books in 2 years?
Yes.
How do you plan to do that?
Well, it's pretty easy, right? So with the current government spending $4 billion for other countries, $5 billion for the corporations, so we are in $20 billion deficit at the moment. So if we stop spending those money, we're going to be actually back on track within 2 years. It's very simple, right?
So I have a follow-up question with NDP. You said that your party did a lot of good work for the people of Alberta. My question comes that if you were working for the people, why you lost the next election?
Well, so elections, they run on a lot of different things, right? We can go back in time and try to decide who won or lost an election and why they did it. We're focused on the future, and we're focused on the momentum that we have here. When I go knock doors, people are really excited about our announcements, including building a brand new hospital in Brampton. We have over 600,000 people. 600,000 people and only one hospital. My father had triple bypass surgery. I've been to Brampton Civic. You'll wait 4, 6, 8 hours. We have amazing professionals working.
We'll talk about the healthcare at a later stage. My question was very simple and very focused. That if party is saying that we are working for the people, for the common people, how can you lose so quickly? How people's confidence and interest in the party shattered in just 4 years?
So I wouldn't say the confidence has shattered. Things have moved. We had a new leader. It takes time to individuals to get to know your new leader. We have a new regime there, so it takes time. But we're picking up momentum. We see it on the ground, and that's what we're focused on. I'm never focused on polls. If we were focused on polls, we wouldn't have got an NDP government in Alberta because they said it couldn't be done. They said it couldn't be done in BC. We don't focus on that. People said Jagmeet couldn't be the leader. We're focused on what's happening on the ground. We're not focused on that at all.
So thank you.
Since the NDP didn't answer a question, I can answer it.
Sure.
The reason the NDP lost the election in Alberta is because since they took power, 120,000 jobs were lost, foreclosures were happening, people did not have the ability to work, the oil rigs dried up, and all the investment that they said they would do. I mean, the Albertans were going through the worst time of their life, the worst recession that they experienced. This is why under Jason Kenney they had the biggest majority win, because the NDP proved that they could not manage yet another government,
so
like what happened in Ontario.
So you're
well.
more responsible for that Liberal government at federal level or the NDP at the provincial level?
It was both. They took shares in what they did in terms of the job losses that happened in Alberta. Absolutely, it was both.
So thank you very much, guys. You want to say something on this?
Yeah, so the Alberta economy really did crash. I agree with my colleague Ramona. Rachel Notley again, what happened was she increased taxes on the corporations. When corporations can't sustain, they can't build jobs, what happens? Job losses. So the point of the matter is raising taxes on corporations does not work. We've seen this playbook before and it does not work. The Conservatives come in, they talk about cuts, and that's exactly what's going to happen. You say you're going to lower the deficit, yet Andrew Scheer, your leader, is talking about lowering taxes on certain amounts of the population. How do you expect to lower the deficit if you're lowering the taxes on certain segments of the population? It just doesn't work.
I can answer that question.
Please go ahead.
What we saw under the Liberal government was that 80% of middle class that you had championed for in the last election had a tax increase of $800. We need to make sure, Conservative philosophy is that you let people manage their own money. You charge less taxes, they know how best to do it. What we do is we cut the mismanagement, like the ice rink that you put in front of Parliament Hill that costs millions of dollars. The money that keeps shelling out to countries overseas for their green energy or whatever investments there that are not in Canada, that's where we're going to have the savings.
Well,
Thank you, guys. Yes, go ahead.
Well, one point I don't get it. So we're actually talking on a very mini level. So Liberal had 4 years. They had 8 years. We're not talking
10
about
years.
well, literally 10 years. So we're not talking about a big achievement. So we're actually talking on a micro level. So the Liberal hasn't done big deals in 4 years. Can you name few things you have done that people are proud of?
We'll give you the opportunity to ask questions to the candidates at the end of the session. Now we are moving to the next topic of our discussion, and which is healthcare. And my question will start from the Conservative candidate, Ramona. So there's too much federal meddling in healthcare. Why not make provinces and territories fully responsible for funding and managing health services? To do that, we can replace the federal health transfer with tax points, allowing provinces to raise their own money. We should have more options for private healthcare to provide good healthcare to the people of Canada. What's your take on that?
My take is that the federal government does transfer payments to the provinces and the territory when it comes to healthcare, and they have committed to the percentage that is allocated to provinces year by year, and that will increase as well. It is under jurisdiction of the province and the territory to manage their healthcare. When it comes to building hospitals, it's not under federal jurisdiction; it is under provincial jurisdiction, and that is absolutely. There is no interference in that sense because it is complete jurisdiction of the province.
Well, we are asking many times to the people, in Brampton we don't have hospital, the required number. And what happens, the federal leaders or candidates, they say, we are ready to give, province don't want to take. Province says there's a problem with the city. City says we are trying, no one is helping at the federal or the provincial. Why not make this matter purely provincial so that there is no blame game?
The matter is provincial, but here's what I'm going to say. Elected as the MP of Brampton East, I will work with the city, I will work with the province and federally to make sure that happens.
You can bring millions of dollars, even billions of dollars, but if the province is not cooperating, you can't do anything.
I will talk to the Premier and the MPPs, as well as I have a working relationship with the Mayor, with the Premier, as well as the leader of the Conservative Party, who will be the future Prime Minister. So I will definitely work with all three levels of government.
So the take on Liberal Party is the federal transfers to the province have increased drastically. We gave Doug Ford and the Conservative government money. What they're doing with that money, we have no control over. Doug Ford turned around, cut $200 million from healthcare funding. What did that do? That increased the emergency room wait time by almost 15%. You know, मैं अपने बाबा जी को लेके गया सी last week, उनके kidney stone सीगा. We went into the hospital and we were waiting 30 घंटे लगे सानू hall ਵਿੱਚ wait ਕਰਨ ਲਈ bed ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਿਆ. ਤੇ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਵੀ nurse ਨੂੰ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਪੁੱਛ ਵੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਨੀਂਦ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ, when is the room going to be available? The nurse ਨੇ ਕੀ ਕਿਹਾ, ਮੈਨੂੰ eye mask ਦਿੱਤਾ. Can you believe that in Canada? She said, here's an eye mask, go to sleep. That's not right. The federal government's stepping up. We're serious about this concern. We're hearing at the doors.
We got it. What's your point on this? Your leader is promising lots of big things. You're promising a hospital, like we're discussing, it's a provincial matter. So how can your party interfere in that?
We're showing leadership. If you look at the healthcare system we have in Canada today, the NDP developed it in the 1960s. We pushed it. We pushed for it against Conservatives, against Liberals who didn't want to see that type of system come in. And it runs on a cooperation. It used to be a 50% federal, 50% provincial system. Because the federal government gave that money, we were able to have that with the provinces through cooperation. But now, because of Conservative cuts, because of Liberal cuts, it's down to 25%. The Liberals and Conservatives have given up on any leadership on this. We're seeing Jagmeet Singh show leadership. Their position is it has been done, so why should it happen? Brampton hasn't got a new hospital, so they should never get it.
You're talking about cooperation. There's a provincially, most of the provinces in Canada right now are Conservative government. So how do you plan to be cooperating with those governments then?
At the end of the day, we represent Canadians. Whether there's a Conservative government at one level, there's a Liberal government, or there's an NDP government, our job is to do our best to represent our constituents. You know, Ms. Singh just said that she has a good relationship with Doug Ford. I would like your viewers to think about that. Having a good relationship with Doug Ford, someone who is cutting our healthcare, cutting our education, cutting autism funding. That's the type of relationship that Andrew Scheer wants to have. That's the type of government that the Conservatives want to have.
Thank you. So we'll give you the rebuttal time. Gaurav, what's your take on...
Because that was...
We'll give you the rebuttal time.
Okay.
Gaurav, what is your take on the statement I made?
Can you
I can repeat it.
Yeah.
So there's so much federal meddling in healthcare. Why not make provinces and territories fully responsible for funding and managing health services? To do that, we can replace federal health transfers with tax points, allowing provinces to raise their own money. What is your take on that?
Well, it all depends on more details, but all I can say at the moment is we have a system in place.
My question is, do you agree with me or you disagree with me?
That's not a sufficient statement for me to agree or disagree. All I can say is we have a pattern where the federal supports the provincial as needed. So if that pattern is working in the right format, before we do any changes, we should see the consequences.
Gaurav, this is not my statement. This is a statement of your leader, Maxime Bernier, which I said. And you are not sure to agree or disagree with this statement?
Well, again, you have to understand, he made a statement based on certain data, right? So that data was long time back. So
no, it's the latest information.
Well,
it's the latest information. So you are not sure about your leader's statement?
No, that's a wrong assumption you're making. All I'm saying is when we get into the government, we don't know what the gaps are going to be. and it's a bigger conversation. So that's the vision. So the vision is to do so, and when you implement your vision on the real platform, then you say, okay, you know what, we need to do these changes. So the vision is correct, but when we go to the implementation, we need to see the ground reality.
थैंक यू हैल्थ केयर बारे गलबात जारी रहेगी क्योंकि बहुत सारे कैंडिडेट्स अपनी रिबटल्स देने चाहते हैं, पर हुण असीं जा रहे हैं एक कमर्शियल ब्रेक पे।
ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ Brampton East ਦੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ। Mr. Sidhu, you just wanted to say something about the NDP's comments.
Yes, so the NDP say, Jagmeet, Mr. Singh stepped up as a leader and said, we're going to bring a hospital to Brampton. ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ 10 NDP ਆਪਣੇ sitting MPP ਹੈਗੇ Brampton 'ਚ। ਕੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ? ਹੁਣ ਜੋ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਆ, ਹੁਣ ਆਪਣੀ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਉਠਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਵੀ we need a new hospital, ਹੁਣ ਆ ਕਰੋ। ਪਿਛਲੇ ਸਾਲ ਤੱਕ ਕੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ?
ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਮੈਂ ਦੱਸ ਸਕਦਾ। ਬ੍ਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਲੈਜਿਸਲੇਚਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਿੱਲ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ, ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਬ੍ਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਨੂੰ 3 ਨਿਊ ਹਸਪਤਾਲ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਨੇ। ਲਿਬਰਲ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਨੇ ਕੁਛ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਇਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ। ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਗਵਰਨਮੈਂਟ ਇਸ ਬਰਖਲਾਫ ਸੀ ਇਸ ਬਿੱਲ ਤੇ। So I can say it again in English. We had the 3 NDP MPs at the provincial level. What have we done in healthcare? We put forward a bill saying that Brampton deserves 3 new hospitals. The Liberals did nothing. They've had 5 Liberal MPs. Not a dollar has come to us.
So
the Conservative government fought against it and voted down, saying that no, Brampton doesn't deserve more hospitals.
Okay, point.
Yes, go ahead.
So you said you did something. What has been the result of it?
So I just gave you what we did, and I gave you the
So you
result.
see,
I said
the challenge
what we
here
did.
is-
You asked a question, I'm going to answer it. What we did was we heard what our constituents wanted. We took that forward. We did what you have to do. You advocate for it. We're organizing folks. We're going to legislature. We're pushing for it. And now we're continuing to push for it. Unlike some of the people that are here today, we're not going to give up. Just because something is hard and we may not succeed at the first time, we're going to try again.
No,
Ramona
I still
also
know.
want to rebuttal. She asked the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to work with all 3 levels of government. It's not about having a good relationship, it's about having a working relationship and being able to work with the council in the city of Brampton as well as the province, not work in isolation, which is what we see when things don't get done, when parties work in isolation or members of parliament work without those 3 levels of government.
Works from both sides. We can't
Yeah.
say it's just one government isn't working. Do you think Doug Ford is ready to work with Liberal government or NDP government if it comes in power?
Absolutely, because the funding comes from the federal government, right? Transfer payments come from the federal government. So it's an absolute must to put Canadians first, to work with any government regardless of their party stripes.
So is he able to work with Liberal government right now?
I'm not running as an MPP, so I cannot. Because
that is what Liberals are saying.
that's something that you'd have to ask
That is
the
what
Liberal
Liberals are saying,
candidate.
That is what Liberals are saying, that there is no cooperation between the provincial and the federal government right now.
I have a follow-up question with the Liberal candidate.
Sure.
So there was a Win government, there was 5 Liberal MPs. Why in those 3 years, 4 years, or even more than that, we couldn't have a hospital in Brampton? And you know that the situation of hospitals is very bad.
Yep. So there was a lack of funding back then. I can't speak of the government then. I was not a politician. I'm not a politician. I'm a businessman. And they stepped up with the urgent care center at Pure Memorial. I know it's not a solution. We do need a hospital, and we're hearing at the doors. And that's one of my things that I want to work on for our constituents here in Brampton.
All right. Jukraj.
Okay, so the next topic we're going to talk about is foreign relations. I'll start with the NDP candidate, Mr. Singh. So we've seen that the position of Canada at the international level has deteriorated during this time. How does your party plan to improve that? What plan do you have for foreign relations?
So once again, you need real leadership. You need individuals who are doing things for the right reasons. They're not concerned with political points at home like the Liberals are. They're not concerned with cutting your services like the Conservatives are. Jagmeet Singh has shown that leadership. We had the Saudi arms deal. The Conservatives made a decision to sell arms that are being used to kill civilians in another land. The Liberals chose to continue that deal when they had the chance to stop it. We're very clear that we would end that deal. We would stop supporting violence, and we'd stop supporting the killing of innocents abroad. That's the record of the Liberals, and that's the record.
Talking about the relations, your leader already doesn't have good relations with India. So how do you plan to improve that?
He's always been a strong fighter for human rights. When he becomes Prime Minister, he's going to continue to fight for human rights. That relationship is one that we'll work on. At the end of the day, it's really important that we do always have principles first. and then we think about making sure that everything is working well for Canadians.
He was not allowed visa to go to India. Do you think under these circumstances, the top countries, which are India, China, we already have bad relations, Russia, US, do you think that he can actually get with the big powers?
Yeah, of course. When Jagmeet interacts with people, it always works out well. He's a person that's looking to do things not for himself, but for the people. That's his track record as an MPP, that was his track record before politics, and what he's going to do is work as hard as possible to make sure that foreign relations are working out for Canadians. That's why we believe in fair trade. We want to make sure that when we have trade agreements, Canadians are the ones who benefit the most, and we're not having jobs shipped overseas like we've seen under the Conservatives, like we've seen under the Liberals. All these free trade deals have undermined Canadian employees. They've let jobs go across. The jobs they talk about, go around and ask people in Brampton, is it easy to find a good job?
You got your point.
Do you feel like you're getting ahead?
You got your point.
Since we're talking about trade agreements here, which is what I specialize in, I've been working in trade for the last 10 years. Canada concluded 3 of the largest trade deals in the history. We concluded CETA, CPTPP, and we renegotiated NAFTA. This gave Canadian businesses access to over 1 billion consumers in Europe, in countries like Japan, in countries like Australia. So you're saying that Canada's relations are not well respected around the world? Canada, no country would sign a trade agreement with Canada should they not have respect for our leader or our government. So our government is responsible in creating good jobs, giving access to Canadian business.
What do you want to say about relationship with China? Has it affected
That
the
was my
trade or
question
not?
as well, yeah.
So the relationship with China has affected trade in certain industries, like the canola oil industry. But if you look at the other positive aspect, Canadian wheat has doubled in their exports to China. Our agricultures are not affected.
Got your point.
Ramana, how Conservative Party will do things differently to have better relations to the rest of the world?
Well, under the Conservative government, we had tremendous trade agreements. We had initiated and completed 50 trade agreements, so we've shown leadership in that. We've always worked with democratic countries to be able to fight against terrorism. When it comes to, have the unity, you need to have relationship with other countries to reach those milestones. When it comes to safety and security, when it comes to a cyber threat, when it comes to trade, and this is what prevents embargoes from happening. This is what prevents wars from actually happening. So we've shown leadership in that, and that's what we'll continue to do.
When we look at the foreign relations, we also want the word peace in that process. And one of the biggest nuclear powers is Russia. And your leader, Andrew Scheer, is banned to go to Russia. How Canada will play an important and vital role in bringing peace in the world when the leader of the party is not even allowed to go to one of the biggest nuclear power?
When the reason of that relationship has been a bit strained is because the Conservatives stood up for Ukraine and Kiev, the movement, what happened between Russia and Ukraine, and we stood up for the democracy of the people, their ability to be able to hold their land. But being on the UN Council, being able to be part of the G7, that we're always part of the peaceful conversation. I believe that the goal will always be to have relationship with world powers.
Mr. Walia.
Well, all I can say is so far in Canada, with the Liberal, with the Conservative, with the NDP, we had maybe good human beings, but we had poor leaders. As I say, poor managers. So driving a country needs someone with a very superior skills. So like even on the job, we have people for a 90-day probation, right? So we have seen Liberal for more than 90 days, 4 years, Conservative for 10 years, NDP on the provincial level. So I think they haven't met any criteria. So we need strong managers, and that's what the People's Party of Canada brings into the picture for the Canadians.
Okay. So with this, we move to the next topic, which is going to be climate and environment.
So I'm going to start with the People's Party of Canada. Your leader, Maxime Bernier, acknowledges climate change is happening, but it's not convinced humans play a role in it. He has said he would do nothing to address climate change and leave it to the private sector to find solutions. The party would withdraw from Paris Accord, get rid of green subsidies, and ditch unrealistic greenhouse gas emission reductions targets. Canada is warming twice the global level. What is the future of our generations?
Well, when it comes to the environment, so So we have been forced to think environment is going in a negative way. So in 2000, I remember people were saying, you know what, 2000 is the end of the world. So when we say, okay, let's talk about it, how come this is the end of the world? People want to avoid those conversations.
So your party doesn't believe climate change is for real?
I didn't say that. So I understand our rivers are getting, we need to clean our rivers, we need to do a lot of, but the myth about the climate that is being created, we never had a fair conversation, because what people are saying, hey, you know what, don't talk about this, because if you talk about this in 2000, as we know, people said the world is going to end. Never happened. 2019, we sit here. So what that means is, the moment we want to have a superior conversation, people back out. So with the liberals saying we need to add $50 per ton, so if we have to go with the Paris Accord, so you should be literally adding $300 per ton. And if you start doing that, it's impossible to survive for the Canadians. So there is no way even anyone claiming to follow the Paris Accord is impossible. $300 per ton is what you need to comply with that.
Climate change ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਜਾਰੀ ਰਹੇਗੀ, ਪਰ ਹੁਣ ਅਸੀਂ ਚੱਲਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਕਮਰਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਤੇ।
ਸਾਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰ ਫਿਰ ਤੋਂ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ। ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਬ੍ਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਈਸਟ ਦੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ। ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ ਕਲਾਈਮੇਟ ਚੇਂਜ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ, ਇਸੇ ਤੋਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਜਾਰੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਰਮੋਨਾ ਸਿੰਘ, I would like to start with you. You have already put up a platform, you have put up a plan for climate change that you're going to work on. It's a pretty big plan, but we don't see any strong steps taken to resolve it. So what do you want to say about your climate plan?
Absolutely. It's the plan that we had with the previous government, the commitment that we had committed to in terms of reducing emissions is the same as what we see this current government keep, and we're committed to a climate plan, which actually doesn't come down to a carbon tax. What it is that we're going to give tax benefits to families that actually refit their homes for green energy. We want to invest in Canadian companies to be able to provide solutions for the biggest polluters, which is China, India, United States. Our contribution to the global emission is 1.6%, and we don't see that the emissions is just regulated on top of just Canada. This is a global issue, and we want to address with a global plan.
What's your plan? So how will you address it?
Our addressing is to be able to make sure families here are able to refit their homes with green energy. We're investing in transit tax credits to make sure that people have an incentive to take transit, which is about $1,000 per family per year, $650 for Go Transit. You have to give people other means than just with a carbon tax when you don't have infrastructure spent on being able to take transit and other means. So that's what we're going to do.
Okay, so NDP candidate, how does your party propose to act on this issue?
We have a very bold climate plan. We have a plan to make our electricity grid net carbon neutral by 2030, zero carbon producing by 2050. We're going to create more than 300,000 new jobs by investing in Canadian technology, in renewable technology. You know, one of the largest employers in Brampton is the Chrysler auto plant. We need to make sure that we're building the future cars of tomorrow here in Brampton, and that's why we're focused on having green technology, green vehicles. And unlike the other parties, you've seen the record of the Liberals. They came in saying that they were going to have real change, but then they committed to using the Harper targets. The targets that they have today are the Harper targets, and it's going to take over 200 years for us to reach our Paris climate goals of 2030 based on research by the Climate Action Network, a third-party organization.
Thank you.
So I know Ms. Ramona Singh over there was talking about the Conservatives being very serious about climate change. They have no real plan. If you look at their book, yeah, it might be 100 pages, but there's no numbers in there. You know, the biggest polluters, you say you want to tax them. You're going to go to China and tax someone in China. You're saying you're going to go to India and get them to pay their fair share. You know, there's no numbers in their books. We have the numbers here. We want to put a price on pollution so we can change the way we fill up our gas tanks. 8 out of 10 families are going to benefit from that. They're going to get a rebate from this. The biggest polluters are going to pay. We are investing in clean energy. We are investing in clean jobs. But like the NDP said, it's an important aspect of our economy, and we can't just eliminate the oil and gas workers. We need to work in a phased-in approach to bring in clean jobs, You know, I'm hearing at the doors, I think about my 2 daughters. Climate change is real, Mr. Gorawalia. It's not fake.
Well, it's again, so climate change versus the myth that is being created is they're two different things. So we agree.
So you're saying these natural disasters, floodings, fires, heat waves, these are real things that we need to...
Let him complete.
These are real things that we need to step in and work towards. You know, when I think about my daughter's futures, I have 2 young daughters at home. We don't need to be dealing with this.
Do you think imposing carbon tax is a real resolution?
It's a start. It worked in England, in Great Britain, since 1890. They have the lowest greenhouse gas emissions now, and they have the carbon tax there.
I want to say something very quickly. The Liberals have no plan. They came in and they promised us. They promised us a lot of things, and they've broken those promises. The single biggest investment they've made on the environment, $4.5 billion for a pipeline. That's their environmental plan. They've made no progress. Over 200 years. It'll take your government over 200 years. So what kind of environmental plan is that? When you come in, you promise change, you use the Harper targets.
So we need to forget about Alberta, the Alberta economy, just let them suffer. You know, they got mortgages to pay. They still have to buy groceries.
So what you're saying is we can't have environment, you can't have...
We can, but
no, you just said that. You said that we have to choose one.
Phased-in approach. You can't just cut the industry and say, sorry, no jobs for you, Alberta.
No, so that's what you're saying. You're saying your plan has no jobs. You're saying that based on putting work on the environment, people are going to be put out of work. We don't believe in that. We believe in investing.
We created 170,000 clean tech jobs in the last 4 years.
Thank you, guys.
Can I address one thing?
Yep.
When it comes to the tax, the carbon tax, what you're saying is I'm going to tax you here and I'm going to give it back to you on the other way without actually changing behavior. It's made groceries more expensive, it's made goods and services more expensive, and I didn't say that we want to tax other countries. I said we want to provide solutions to the biggest polluters.
So how are you going to get China to pay their fair share?
So we'll be moving to the next topic because the time is very short.
Well, I just want to conclude on this. So with us putting no carbon tax, it's going to be actually giving more to the economy. So we propose no carbon tax at all.
Thank you very much. So environment, climate to baad, agla issue, housing affordability and geographical.
Yeah, I'll start with the NDP candidate. So you promised that you're going to build a 500,000 affordable housing, and you also promised to scrap federal portion of the GST on the construction of new affordable units. Your party also says that they're going to reintroduce 30-year term to the mortgages insured by CHMC. Why do you think the other party should support this platform?
Because it's supporting hardworking Canadians.
Okay.
Living in Brampton, I've lived in Brampton East, I live in the riding, I've lived in the riding for a long time when they first started building houses. I've seen the price of a house in my community in Brampton East almost triple. Mm-hmm. And during that time, the Liberal government, we've had a Liberal government, we've had a Conservative government, wages haven't increased. People are forced to pay 3 times more for a house, but their wages have not increased in over 20 years when adjusted for inflation.
You're promising a lot of big things, but how do you plan to cost it?
So we're promising big things because Canada needs real change. In terms of the costing, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to make big corporations pay. The Liberals don't believe in having corporations
pay. I have a follow-up question. A lot of people are saying that the NDP is promising a lot of big things because they never came to power and they'll never come to power, so they can say whatever they want to say. How do you react to that?
I completely disagree. We've been in power. We've been in power in Alberta. We've been in power in BC. We've been in power across the country.
I'm saying at federal level.
At the federal level, we're going to, just because something hasn't been done, that's the type of mentality that the Liberals want you to have. This has been done. We haven't had real change on climate. We haven't had real work on climate change, so let's forget about it. We haven't had a government that addresses the housing crisis, so let's just forget about it. We refuse to believe in that. I became a human rights lawyer because I wanted to push rights forward. Because I've been told for my entire life there are things I couldn't do because of the way I look. I refuse. And our party refuses to be told that we can't do anything. We want to build 500,000 new homes because we have a housing crisis. We have an absolute housing crisis, and we're going to pay for it by making multi-billion-dollar corporations, which are the friends of the Liberals, which you just heard earlier, should not be taxed. According to them, according to my counterpart here, my Liberal counterpart, corporations should not be taxed. Their taxes should only go down. They should never go up. So your taxes, my taxes, and the taxes of everybody in Brampton East, they should go up to continue to pay for corporations.
I'm going to come back to it. Why do you not support this plan? Why do you support this, do not support this plan?
The NDP plan?
Yes.
Solely because they never accost what they're going to do when it comes to everything that they want to offer. They speak on 2 sides of their mouth. They talk about taxing major corporations, which actually makes them leave this country, and that's when jobs leave. But then they talk about creating corporate jobs under green energy and whatnot. So I find it very confusing to keep up with their ideologies, actually, to be honest with you. how we plan for affordable housing. But when it comes down to affordable housing, we want to make sure that people have enough money in their bank to be able to put a down payment. This is why the Conservatives are always about the middle class. And now we've actually introduced the universal tax cut, which is for the lowest earners with the income bracket, anywhere between, we're going to do a tax credit, income tax of 15% from 15% to 13.75, which is a savings for per family when they're earning anywhere from $12,000 to $47,000. We're going to take a look at the stress test and be able to make it more affordable on families to be able to put a down payment and get ahead.
Mr. Sidhu, your party claims to have acted on this issue. How do you look at your party's performance on it?
I think it's a great start. We have a lot more work to do, like I was saying before. First-time homebuyers incentive, it helps first-time homebuyers get into our home market, whether it be a townhouse or whether it be a condo. It helps provide up to $50,000 or 10% of the down payment, which would be $50,000 at today's rate. Interest-free, lets people get into the market. You can use the equity in your house to maybe start a business later on, or even for retirement. It helps young families in our constituency get involved in housing. I know they said they have a plan for 500,000 homes. Currently, 5,000 to 10,000 social development units are built every year. How do you just sign a check and increase it by 10 times? Because based on their numbers, you need 50,000 units per year. You need to get the municipalities on board. Bylaw officers need to be hired. Zoning officers need to be hired. The construction industry is facing a crunch right now for trade skills labor, and they think they can just sign a check and say magically make 500,000 units. It's not realistic, and that's what the NDP does. Their plans are not realistic.
A quick rebuttal here. I just want to say something very quickly. Their plan was to get people to borrow more money. We'll let you take on more loans. That's not a solution. And what did I hear right here? It's too hard. It's too hard to work with municipalities. It's too hard to do this. That's why we have a housing crisis, because the Liberals, and my counterpart right here is saying that it's too hard to work on the housing crisis.
I didn't say it's too hard.
He said it's too hard, and we're working on it. They think that their plan has been great. So the fact that housing is
you said it was a great start.
It's a good start.
And we still need
it's a great
to do
start.
more.
And you haven't done more, and you don't have a plan to do more.
You
don't have a plan to do more.
Thank you. Prime Asia Television ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਇਹ ਡਿਬੇਟ ਕੰਟੀਨਿਊ ਚਲਦੀ ਰਹੇਗੀ, ਲੇਕਿਨ ਹੁਣ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਕਮਰਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਤੇ।
ਸਾਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰ ਫਿਰ ਤੋਂ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਹੈ। ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਜਾਰੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਹਾਊਸਿੰਗ ਅਫੋਰਡੇਬਿਲਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ। PPC candidate Decor Walia, I would like to start with you. What's your party's plan on housing affordability?
Well, before, I've been listening to a lot of conversation, and to my surprise, the conversation is happening all scattered, so people are just all over the place.
Okay.
So now, housing is a demand and supply. With all the parties increasing the immigration levels, so it's a demand and supply. There's no question about it. So anybody proposing, so like we had Liberals, they introduce all kind of taxes. We had Conservative, I heard one of the videos of Conservative.
What is your party's plan? Do you have any plan for housing affordability or not?
It's we need to analyze where the other parties are going to be leaving the country for, so we don't have any fake or false promises at the moment.
So you're just saying the Canadians should get you to power so that you can get in there for 4 years, analyze the things, and then you
No, it doesn't. So that's what I'm saying. We need to bring the country out of deficit. That's the plan is. So once we do that, we have much more to invest. We're reducing the taxes on the Canadians, the federal taxes on their income. So those are few things we are doing. So housing obviously is, like I said, housing doesn't exist in isolation. So if you keep talking housing, so there are many parameters that affect. So we're trying to improve all the parameters that affect housing directly or indirectly. So eventually it's going to be helping Canadians come out of all the negativity that has happened in the past.
Thank you, Gaurav. विषय हाले बहुत सारे हैं। इमिग्रेशन का विषय है, रिलीजियस सिंबल्स, द सेकुलर एक्ट, क्यूबिक का इशू है, बहुत सारे होर इशूज हैं, पर समा इजाज़त नहीं दिंदा। इस करके एज पर अनाउंस्ड इन द बिगनिंग दैट वी विल गिव चांस टू एवरी कैंडिडेट टू आस्क वन क्वेश्चन to the other candidate of their choice. So we start that part. And I give opportunity first to Gaurav Walia to ask a question, because he was asking a lot of questions. So ask a question to one candidate of his choice.
Well, the question can be asked when you believe you get a true answer. So to my surprise, I do have a lot of questions, but I simply don't believe the answers that are going to be given to me. are going to be true answers. So with that in mind, I would refuse to ask any questions because I've seen all the governments in the past and I simply do not believe in the way they have operated. So no more hearing of false promises. Pure action is what the People's Party of Canada is going to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaurav. So now I'll give opportunity to Mr. Ramona, Conservative Party candidate. So you can ask one question to any candidate of your choice.
Absolutely. A question I have is for the Liberal candidate. It's that we had 60 people come back into the country who were fighting overseas for ISIL in terrorist groups. How do you feel about that stance of the Prime Minister allowing them back in without knowing what the repercussions are
You
in
just go 1
Canadian
minute onto
safety?
that question.
Sure. So, like I said, a Canadian deserves the right to come back to Canada. The penalties need to be more strict. I believe our justice system needs to be tightened up. But it's simply because if the person is a Canadian, you can't just say, sorry, you're not welcome back into our country. You have to accept a Canadian back. The government has that type of responsibility. What they do with the person when they come back to Canada is up to the government. I can't speak on behalf of the government. I haven't been in the government, but penalties need to be more strict. And I believe that Canadians should be well looked after and criminals should be prosecuted to the fullest.
Okay, so now I'll request NDP candidate to ask one question to any candidate of his choice.
In the face of a Global Mail report that the government unduly undermined our justice system in the SNC Lavalin affair, Justin Trudeau came out and he said that nothing happened. He lied to Canadians. Then Jody Wilson were able to testify and the government once again said it wasn't true. It was not until the recording came out of the conversation and that the Ethics Commissioner has already at this point ruled that
Let's come to the question.
has ruled that you violated the Ethics Act. Given that the government has directly lied to Canadians, wouldn't you agree that you've lost the moral authority to govern?
Well, our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau took responsibility for the report. What I'm hearing at the doors, SNC is a Canadian company. We have constituents in our riding that work for SNC, and they shook my hand. They said, thank you, thank Mr. Trudeau for standing up for our jobs. So that's what Mr. Trudeau is about, standing up for jobs, and that is the essence of the report, the essence behind it, because he knows that people need to still pay mortgages, people still need to pay for their groceries. So in terms of losing respect and trust, no, I don't see it at the doors. I'm sorry.
That's untrue. The ethics report clearly says that's for political reasons. That's untrue.
Saranji, there are no follow-up questions. We have very limited time. So the next candidate. So you ask question to a candidate of your choice. Maninder.
Sure. This question is for Ms. Ramona Singh. Does the Conservative plan actually have a real plan for climate change? I know you guys say you have a big book of ideas, but there's no actual numbers in there.
We've actually committed to the numbers of reducing emissions. They're the same numbers that the Liberal government, when they took power, have committed to in 2015. But where we disagree is that we don't need to tax Canadians, mums and dads, for driving their kids to school or getting to work, because 92% of that tax goes to families. It's only 8% under the Liberal plan is going to the biggest polluters in Canada. So we're saying that doesn't actually make sense. So the numbers we've actually committed to, and you guys have committed to as well.
So coming back, thank you very much. Coming back to our own questions which were left. So now you'll get 45 seconds to react. There will be no follow-up questions. Every candidate will get 45 seconds to react. And I'm reading a statement of Maxime Bernier. He says that if he becomes Prime Minister, his government would slash immigration and refugee numbers, build a fence to block asylum seekers from walking across the border, and end the program that lets immigrants sponsor their family to join them. He seems to believe unaffordable housing, mess in our hospital, crimes in our cities, all problems Canada facing is from the mass immigration policies of Justin Trudeau. First, the Liberal candidate, 45 seconds.
Well, that sounds a lot like Donald Trump. When Donald Trump wanted to come into power, he blamed our Mexican neighbors, saying they're responsible for crime, they're responsible for the uptake of illegal activity. I don't think that's responsible, and I think having a party like that brings hatred into our country, which Canada welcomes none of that.
NDP.
So my family came to Canada as refugees when I was 1 year old. We feel that immigration is a strong part of our society. Statements like that are very dangerous. Statements like that are similar to what the Conservatives said when they created the snitch line, essentially the barbaric practices snitch line.
Thank you. Ramona.
I disagree completely with those statements. Immigration's what makes this country. I'm an immigrant myself, and it's for the same reasons that Maxime Bernier doesn't represent our party, and it's the same reasons I didn't vote for him in the leadership.
Thank you. Mr. Walia, any rebuttal to what they've said?
So I think the challenge here is everybody's reading on the surface. So I would suggest people to go deep dive into what our leader has said. So we are not abolishing immigration, we are not reducing immigration, we are balancing the immigration, and balancing anything is going to lead to positive results. So once again, you should deep dive into what the leadership has said rather than just reading on the surface.
Thank you, Mr. Valia. We have the next question Jugraj is going to ask. That's about the public safety, because it's a very, very important topic, but we are only left with 2 minutes. So I'm going to give 30 seconds to everyone to react. Jugraj.
So in Canada, criminals shoot and stab and get bailed in a few weeks, and then they reoffend. How do you rate your performance, your party's performance on this? How much you have done for the public safety?
Well, public safety is a big concern. I'm knocking on doors. A lot of people are concerned about break-ins, the gun violence from Toronto. Our government stepped up with almost $50 million of funding for the province to give out to municipalities to fight guns and gang violence. We're stepping up, and we know it's an important issue, so we are there for our constituents.
Do you agree with their comment, and what's your plan? 30 seconds.
We need to make sure funding comes to Brampton. It's gone only to Toronto. We've seen in the Liberal government a removal of minimum sentences for gun-related crime. We've seen automatic bail for gun-related crime. We've seen the emergence of just all of this activity happening in Brampton, yet it hasn't been addressed when we have a majority government under the Liberals.
So thank you. What's your plan on that?
A lot of nice words, we need action. The NDP is committed to allowing municipalities to ban handguns. If the city of Brampton wants to ban handguns, they should be able to do it. We're seeing a rise in gun crime. Neither of these parties is willing to take leadership. We're taking bold stances on issues like this and every issue because it's the right thing to do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you have any plan?
Well, as I previously mentioned, we got poor leaders. Everybody has great words to add, but there is no action. With the People's Party of Canada, we bring great leadership and great action. These problems won't even arise. Thank you.
Thanks.
The last one?
No, look at that.
All right. So there are no follow-up questions, and we are closing. I'm closing my statement with this. Lok Raj hi asal or Raj hunda, ਢਾਂਚਾ ਜਿਸ ਦਾ ਬੜਾ ਹੀ ਦਮਦਾਰ ਹੋਵੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਲੋਕ ਹੀ ਆਪ ਚੁਣਦੇ ਕੰਮ ਜਿਸ ਦਾ ਬੜਾ ਹੀ ਅਸਰਦਾਰ ਹੋਵੇ ਕਹਿਣੀ ਕਰਨੀ ਦਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਜੋ ਧਨੀ ਪੂਰਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਬੇਸ਼ੁਮਾਰ ਹੋਵੇ ਦੇਸ਼ ਉਦੋਂ ਹੀ ਜੌਲ ਖੁਸ਼ਹਾਲ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਬਣੀ ਲਾਇਕ ਬੰਦਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਹੋਵੇ ਲੈਟ ਦ ਬੈਸਟ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਵਿਨ
ਸੋ ਇਹ ਸਨ ਬ੍ਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਈਸਟ ਦੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜੋ ਸਟੂਡੀਓ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਰੂਬਰੂ ਹੋਏ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਪਲੇਟਫਾਰਮ ਆਪਣੀ ਪਾਲਿਸੀਜ਼ ਬਾਰੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਕੁ ਸਹਿਮਤ ਜਾਂ ਅਸਹਿਮਤ ਹੋ ਇਸ ਦਾ ਫੈਸਲਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਕਰਨਾ ਆਉਂਦੀਆਂ ਚੋਣਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੋਟ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਜਵਾਬ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੇ ਦੇਣਾ ਮੈਂ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੰਜੀਵ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੋ-ਹੋਸਟ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਐਂਡ ਵੀ ਆਲਸੋ ਥੈਂਕ ਆਲ ਆਫ ਯੂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਰਹੋ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਏਸ਼ੀਆ ਟੀਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲਈ